Welcome to the Generation Fit podcast. I'm Coach Benji with Coach Chris, and together we've helped over 100 men build the body of their dreams. In today's podcast, we talked about should you bulk, cut, or maintain your body weight. Let's get into it.
Bulk, maintain, or cut right off the get-go. So we get asked a lot by our clients when we first onboard them and when we talk online and put our content up. We do get a lot of questions based off of what they should do first. So I'll let Benji kind of intro this a little bit and kind of give context as to giving us our recommendations for which one you should do based on a few big things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it really depends on your starting position. There's different hits. So one, your starting position based on your actual body composition. So are you skinny? Are you kind of in the middle, like you're skinny fat kind of? And then are you like very fat or at least above 20% body fat? Up to you if you decide if that's very fat or not or when it is. But there's that. And then there's how long have you been training and working out for? How long have you, or how many times have you tried to diet? How many times have you failed at that and gained the weight back if you did lose some weight? All these things are important. And then also, I guess you would take into the account your personal comfort level. If you are really skinny, how much should you bulk? If you're skinny fat, it's like, how comfortable are you, recomping, or do you want to go, like, it really depends on your goals as well. So I'd assume if you're skinny, generally people's goal is to pack on muscle and look bigger and better. I mean, everyone wants to look better. If you're skinny fat, it's generally probably to look leaner and a little bit more muscular. And if you're very fat, I mean, before even the muscular part, most of those guys just want to not be very fat anymore. So if you're skinny, I think that's the easiest one. You're going to be in a surplus of calories. There's nowhere else to go from there other than even skinnier. And it's exactly the opposite of where you want to go. So you have to be eating more food, just like kind of to set the scene there. With skinny fat guys, it's probably going to be eating at a maintenance level of calories or slightly above that. And that comes down, and we'll talk about the nuances, probably to their training age as well. So what I mean by that is if you're skinny fat, you're probably trying to get a little leaner and build some muscle. If you're eating at maintenance and training the right way, that's definitely going to happen. But if you've never worked out before, you could probably be in a slight surplus of calories and get leaner while building more muscle as a result of that. And then if you're, let's say, over 20% body fat, it's like for most of those guys, unless they've been dieting for like 5 years straight, like we talked about before, I would say, just either at maintenance or, 250 to 500 calories below maintenance, depending on how extreme the situation is. But if you're manipulating the other variables of training for the first time and walking significantly more steps every single day, especially with the amount of weight you already are holding on your body, every step you take is going to burn that many more calories. So if you go from like not walking to doing like 10,000 steps a day, you could eat at maintenance calories technically and be losing like a pound to 2 pounds a week, just being above 20% and moving for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's kind of just like the context of, how I see it with each of the three categories. And maybe you could go into why people don't know exactly, which one they should do. And then we can go into the nuances of each one.
Yeah, so you broke it down. You broke down the three variables very good. Or very well. When you do break it down, it definitely does become what your starting point is. So we take the three variables, and then that's how we can decide which way you want to go. So the easiest points are always going to be to the extreme. So yes, if you're really skinny and you've never put on enough weight, it's like, yes, you probably just need to eat a lot more calories. And then the extreme end on the other side is, yes, if you're over 20% body fat, and for a visual picture of that means you have no resting 2-pack, basically. That's like the definition of being around the 18-20% body fat range. So if you don't have a resting 2-pack of any sort, then that most likely means you're above that. And if you have a hard stomach, no, that's just visceral fat. That's a whole other story. So now that you have context, those are the extremes. So most people are kind of in the middle in this case.
I would say so.
If they're like, hey, which one should I do, right? So this becomes more of like the not very muscular build, and they have extra fat flopping around, whether it's on the arms, the waist, the chest. those are the people that we're probably talking to right now. So and
The Italian grandpas at the extreme. Well, that is the extreme of what we're saying, but I'd say like everyone has that. Too. Like the average person asking this question is that just not at that extreme.
yeah, like, maybe not that ethnicity either, but yeah, I see what you're saying. So when I talk to these people that are usually between I assume it's gonna be like 15 to 20% body fat, honestly. But yes, if you are in the middle, and now it becomes a determining factor if I should cut, maintain, or bulk, then it really becomes about your dieting age will probably be one of the biggest things out there. So it's like hopefully you haven't dieted before, and if you haven't or have any history of yo-yo dieting or going on and off, that's the people we want to like. People that's so much easier to work with because then you probably haven't done anything to bring down the metabolism to adapt. So you're not eating like 1,000 calories to maintain weight.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part one. So your dieting history is huge, especially for these people in the middle. Now, once your dieting history is good, then it goes by training age. And we kind of break it down by training age as smart training. So that means you have been resistance training at least twice a week for at least 1 to 2 years. Like that's a bare minimum in terms of at least past beginner. Like that's...
And like not doing everything wrong. Because it's like how many people like have been like, oh yeah, I've been like to the gym like for the last 2 years. It's like they're totally inconsistent. They've done everything completely wrong. They haven't gained an ounce of strength. And it's like in that case, we just treat them like complete beginners.
Yeah. So smart, that's why we define it as smart training for 1 to 2 years. And that just means literal consistency and bare basics of heavy compounds, decent technique, and some sort of like good enough volume intensity throughout those years. And then you don't have to be like so specific. It's literally just, are you training hard? Are you training enough? And then are you consistent is really the big three in there. And then from there it becomes goals. So this is definitely more the subjective take, but what does the person really want to see first? So this is becoming more of knowing yourself. So if you're the person that's like, I've always been more skinny fat. I just want to see my abs first. That's where we're like, okay, this is where you probably should cut first.
Yeah.
Right. Even though it might not be like the most scientifically correct one. It's just psychologically, you just want to get to that goal first. So we're going to take you there. And the whole point is once you get there, going up takes a lot longer anyways.
Yeah. And it's going to make you happier. You're going to like achieve some success and you're going to be like, oh, I want to keep doing this. Whereas if you always wanted abs and then you don't get it for 6 months, then you're going to be like, oh, I don't really want to do this because I didn't get what I wanted.
Yeah, the buy-in has to be very high. So yes, if you're listening to us now, and it's like, okay, well, if I have the reverse diet takes at least 6 months before you even start going down in weight. Yeah, it's daunting to do something like that. But in your case here is if you psychologically just want to look a certain way, like 6-pack, even though like you don't have that much muscle on you, then there you go. You have maintenance to cutting side. And then if you're like, okay, I'm skinny fat and I would like to put on muscle first. I just want more size and just look overall better. Then that's where maintenance to a slight surplus will probably do you more justice.
Definitely.
And that's just because you probably most likely haven't trained properly. If you still look a little bit flabby all the way around, not a lot of muscle tone, then that's where we recommend going on the maintenance to bulk side. So it really just becomes, depends on your starting point and then also your preference. And for most people that we work with, they don't have a good training background. If they did, that means they probably did it years ago. So that means when they come to us, they're technically, we call it detrained. So they're like either beginners or just detrained. And then most people we also work with have tried some sort of dieting, but it's not so crazy that they are destroying their metabolism.
Yeah, you could just get back on, you can actually properly diet and it just works.
Yeah. If anything else, they actually go down on the diet and then they just come back and more. So if anything, their metabolism's back up. If anything's ramped back up, it's just that they're putting on fat because they're overeating. And then psychologically, most of them do want to get the 6-pack first, or at least go down in body fat first. So that's where we recommend, at least in the first like 1 to 3 months, like, all right, let's just do a stricter cut.
Yeah.
And then get them really good physical results. Then we break out and then let's go back up. And then if we do a bulk properly, it should really take a long time. Like I'm not kidding. It's like 2 pounds a month is like the recommended amount now, about 2 pounds, or a little bit less than 1% a month. Mm-hmm. And that's for everyone except for the beginners, which you can push now towards the 1 to 2% per month.
And if you're like very skinny starting off.
Yeah, if you're very skinny starting off, it's like, I want you to put on more fat. I want you
Yeah.
just to have more size and more weight on the scale to help you more psychologically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's the basis of the cutting, maintaining, and bulking, and then also for our clients. So now I guess we could definitely go into, I guess, little nuances in between.
Yeah. Well, I would say one thing is that I feel like on the internet, you have a lot of gurus that say, and they use science to support it, but they can go either way. Should you bulk or cut if you're generally skinny fat? And some people are very fervent that you should, cut first and then bulk. And some people feel very strongly you should bulk first and then cut. But it's not the real world because they never take into the account that everyone's going to want a different thing in the short term and in the long term than what they are just assuming. So right there, it's like we've already answered the question like in the last 5 to 10 minutes in terms of like, well, what should you do? And it's like, here's the two options. Here's the two situations where you would choose one of the two options based on your goals and your starting point. And it's that simple, right? Like a lot of the guys on the internet, they don't take into the account that every single person is their own individual person. It's just like, do this if you want this, do this if you want this. But then those people do that and then they're failed by following that advice. And that's where they come to us and they're like, yeah, I heard that, you should bulk before you cut. Like, so I've been trying to eat more food and all this stuff. And then you find out a lot of times that it's actually not aligned with what they wanted in the meantime, in the immediate, and sometimes not even in the long run. And that's what deterred them from like having a consistent routine in the gym in the first place. So like, that's why, like, I think that's the even more important point is we were talking about it, before, which is actually the second half of this podcast, but about as you get better at something, you start to enjoy it more and then you start to do it more because you're better at it. So it's just a positive feedback loop. So it's going to be very negative if you're like, hey, I want a six pack. And then you do the opposite of that because a fitness guy online told you to, and you've never worked out before. And you're like, man, working out sucks. Like I look worse than I thought I was going to look working out. Let me stop altogether. Whereas at least if you get someone results very quickly, it psychologically motivates them to keep going. And then in the long run, their goals start to align more with the science as they keep going on and on. So I would say that that's like something I just noticed with clients right away is they come and they ask even before they become clients and we're figuring out if they're a good fit to work with us. And they say, yeah, I heard this guy said this guy said this. That they're always coming to us because whatever the other person said did not align with their goals. Like they tried that thing, they didn't have much guidance, and it kind of demotivated them and made them not consistent in the gym. So the only reason that they would be consistent with us is because we're helping them do something that's consistent with what they want. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would say is like what we know scientifically, like probably where we should be doing if everything else would be perfect. So if all else perfect and we decide like, okay, you should bulk, maintain, cut. This is because of science, right? And then I guess the experience and the wisdom come along and saying that we want to match you where you're going, where you are, and then get you results quickly so you buy in and win fast. So that it's two very different takes. So that's why when we talk about this stuff, we always talk about like what is the current science that we know of, what has worked with our clients, and then what works best for most people. That's kind of like the breakdown of us three.
And sometimes it's very different, right? Like I'll give you a really good example of this. Is a lot of times we have clients switching exercises, same variation, like same movement patterns, but different variations, like every 4 to 6 weeks. A lot of people will keep the same variation in for a year or 2 years and get really strong at that variation. And in the long run, that will do better for them. But usually that's also the person that their life is the gym and they don't care about how boring the things are because they find the satisfaction in those like boring, mundane tasks of going to the gym, lifting a half rep more every week and seeing the progress of that. Whereas other people, they're more psychologically focused and entrenched in their lift. If they are getting those exercises that are switched up, they're like, oh, I'm so excited for the next exercise. What's it going to be? Whereas if it was the same thing every week, they'd be like, this is getting a little stale. They start missing workouts because lifting isn't their identity. It's not like they just want to be healthy for whatever reason. And the reason is usually not what our reason would be. Mm-hmm. So like that's a huge contrast between where the science is of how long you should keep a movement in, especially if you're a beginner, versus what actually is going to lead to the most long-term satisfaction and as a result, long-term success of a client. It's very different in that example. And there are other things like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the biggest examples is we call it recomposition in our space, and then for the average listener, that just means that you're eating at maintenance and that you're putting on muscle while losing fat.
Yeah.
So understand that it is actually the only time you can do this, at least effectively, is at an early stage of training.
Yeah.
And then also earlier in your dieting career. So basically, it's hopefully you haven't done any sort of crazy diet so that your metabolism isn't adapted lower. And then that your training age is, you just haven't trained or you just started. Because then everybody knows that in the first year or two, those gains are rampant.
Yeah.
And you just have all those muscle building signals in your body that have not been touched yet. So that's the definition of recomposition or recomping, I'll keep saying. And when we recommend this, that means, yes, you have not trained for a good year or two consistently. You have not had you haven't dieted so low to the point where your metabolism is basically childlike. And then that you're able to be okay psychologically with your weight staying between almost a net positive 2.5 each way. So even if we take you on this journey of recomping, right? So all you skinny fat people there, right? Basically, if you even noticed that we were always at the recomping / maintenance side of things. And then just depending on your psychological need of, hey, I want to look better first, like leaner. And then you go up if you just want to basically put on more muscle first. The recomping side is really just depending on, like, that's what I recommend for most people in this middle range.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I recommend right away. And then from there, it's the psychological effect of which one do you want? Do you want to go leaner first, or you want to go put on muscle faster first? So that's where it's like, that's the person's decision, not the scientific decision overall.
Yeah. I think it depends genetically how fast you build muscle also, and then how dedicated you are to the gym. Like, I think, because then, like you said, right, it depends how quick you want to build muscle, and then the other element is how quick can you actually build muscle. Because if you're a genetic freak, it's like you could lose fat on like year 4 of smart training and like still build some muscle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, absolutely. And it's not, by no means is going to be as effective if you're in a surplus. But like, if you were at that maintenance point and you were going to the gym 2 times a week, and then you did things just as efficiently, but we're going 5 times a week, that definitely counts for something too, in terms of the lenience you'd have with manipulating your calories and how your body composition would change. So it also depends on like, how important is this goal to you, and how much time are you willing to dedicate towards it? Like, if you're willing to dedicate 5 to 10 hours a week, it's very different than 2 to 3 hours a week, because you're probably not going to build muscle at the same rate.
Yeah, it's definitely a law of diminishing returns. And then I would say is, so if you're training 2 times a week, that's bare minimum, right?
Yeah.
That's, I guess, the bare minimum. Like,
You definitely get results.
Yeah, it's like 1 time a week is just like, okay, I'm just trying to do something. 2 times a week is like, that's the bare minimum to really start making a massive difference on your body shape. 3 times a week is like probably the like perfect sweet spot of both practicality and looking good.
Yeah.
4 is like the starting point of like, this is the bare minimum. I'm serious. I'm almost optimizing everything. So like, that's the breakdown of the from 2 to 4 days a week, and 4 plus, I should really say. It's 4 plus. That's if you truly want to look a certain way in a certain amount of point. I just know that for the people that we work with, it's the most reasonable amount of times they work out is 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So in those 2 to 3 times a week, we were just maximizing as much compound exercises and then specific body parts they're hitting. And then to match with their nutrition, that just becomes, we generally will actually put them more on eating more. But it's funny because when we start them off, anytime we start off with new clients, we don't even tell them to manipulate calories right away. Like, it's not the first thought. What we do is we are actually coaching more protein. Like, we're just like, look, you're just not eating enough protein.
Yeah.
Let's just get you to eat enough protein and then see what happens. And then we know psychologically that they just end up eating less calories overall, because they're just like, man, I'm full. I actually just had a client say that like last week, saying like, oh yeah, I got in all these protein snacks and like now I just can't, I don't even want to eat anymore. And then he had a whole steak for dinner. He's like, I woke up not hungry. And I was like, yeah, it's crazy how much different it becomes. So when people ask this question, I break it down to be like, okay, yes, this is probably the reason why you should bulk, maintain, cut, like we just mentioned earlier. But then I'm like, okay, what's your protein like? And they're like, I have no idea what I eat in a day. It's like crazy.
Yeah, so it helps like all these things at once just by focusing on one variable. It's like quick wins psychologically. That's awesome. It's they're getting more protein in, so like their muscle building is going to be more potent, and then they're going to inherently probably be eating less and also be eating more whole foods because that's generally the protein sources we recommend. So it's like all these things are awesome, like right off the bat from focusing on one variable.
Yeah, so like that's why I don't. That's why when people ask this question, we always give the context, obviously. But then when we give them the practical steps forward, it always just becomes you're probably not getting enough protein. Get more protein.
Yeah.
Then automatically your calories will turn into more whole foods coming from whole foods, and then it will also go lower just because eating those types of foods will obviously make you more satiated. Then from there we go, okay, now that you're having these habits and these principles set, now let's start playing with, do I just add more carbs? Do I just add more fats based on your preference? Are you eating, generally more clean now just so you feel better, right? And then that's where it becomes like bulk, maintain, cut. Whereas, yes, technically I can just give you a calorie number, start you there, and then bring you up or down, and technically it would
work. Yeah.
But we know that's not psychologically going to happen perfectly every single time because we are all human.
Yeah, I think it's harder to focus on the calories and then all the little things within it because, if you're trying to build an attractive physique, then just limiting calories, we know what happens is that you lose body weight, but sometimes you lose muscle and fat. So a lot of times you just look like the same amount of fat and you just weigh less. You know what I mean? That's not what people want. It's like you go from like 185 to 178 and you're like, man, why do I look exactly the same? And it's like, well, because you did everything wrong within that diet, even though you were eating less. So that's also plays a role as well. But I'd say the other most important variable is going to be energy expenditure then after that. Because if we're having these people eat a little bit more, it still is, very lean gains, especially depending on how much they choose to move in addition to that. So it's like, we kind of tell these guys, pick your poison, right? Like you're at a certain amount of calories now. This is your goal. And to achieve less than that, you either eat a little less and move more, or to eat a lot more than that, you eat more. And then if you want to eat even more than that, you move more too. So it's like that the energy expenditure throughout the day really helps them manipulate variables to their liking. So it's like, you want to eat more, well, move even more, and you could eat even more. And it's like, based on any goal. And then based on any other goal as well, you want to eat, you want to lose more weight, but you want to be able to eat more. It's like, we'll still move more then,
Mm-hmm.
I tripped over my words there a little bit, but you get what I'm saying? It's like, there's a lot more leeway in terms of like how you want your lifestyle to be just based on how much you move.
Yeah. Okay. So I see what you're saying. So you basically, the big points that we want to set first, even before you even decide bulk, maintain, cut, right? Like that definitely is just, if you want to look at it as an objective number standpoint, yes, you just set the number and be like, okay, I just have to go X amount over or at or X amount below. But we know if we set the habits, especially like movement, and you're just saying, all right, we get 10,000 steps as our activity level of day. And no matter if you're bulk, maintaining, or cutting, that's just a very good habit. That's very healthy. And you also have a good, persistent amount of movement every single day, no matter what your goal is. Then the manipulation becomes very easy.
Yeah.
Because then you can move more during a diet to stop bringing down your calories. And then if you're bulking, it's like, I can be a little bit more sedentary as the calories go up. And that is a variable of choice also in the journey that we have for our bulking, maintaining, cutting. But before we go, know that the rate of gain for bulking is very slow, right? So like we mentioned before, it's 1%. If you're a trained individual, it's 1% a month is the recommended. If you want to go more and optimize the last like 5 to 10% of muscle gain, it does come with a cost of way more fat. So that is where bulking stands as of right now. So for most people, most men when we work with, it's 2 to 3 pounds a month is like the faster end. 2 pounds is probably like the more recommended now. And if you're going to maintain, well, it's pretty simple. But just know that if you are in the maintenance realm, that you want your weight to be within about 2 pounds each way. And it just depends on the size of the person. If you're over 200 pounds, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's more like 4 pounds each way. But you want to maintain weight. That means that your measurements around your body are going to change. So that's why body tape measurements around your waist, your shoulders, your chest, all are going to matter. So as you're maintaining weight, body measurements have to go in the direction that you want. So like if your waist goes down an inch, that's about 3 pounds of fat lost. If your shoulders go out an inch, it's probably like I probably gained like a good solid pounds of muscle, right?
Yeah.
So it's a picture. So as you maintain weight, you definitely account for your body measurements while your weight is maintaining a certain range. And then cutting, it basically goes 1 pound a week to 1% body fat a week. So 1 pound a week is usually the recommended range. Very simply put, like 1 pound a week for anybody is pretty good. 3,500 calorie deficit in a week. And then 1% body fat is definitely the upper threshold for most people. That's not obese. We'll talk about that in a second. 1%. And then it's usually not as much as you think. You're over 200 pounds, that's 2 pounds a week. That's not as much as you think, though. Now, if you're obese or just really overweight, guess what? You can actually lose more than that and faster, too. Obviously, it's not crash dieting, but that's where it's like, yes, you can lose. Just follow some general guidelines, and you'll be down like 5-10 pounds pretty quickly. Probably within the first like 2 weeks, you'll probably be like down a lot more weight. So
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
excludes the obese and overweight. And in that case, the recommendation is kind of skewed because it just depends how overweight you are, which can be obviously large.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's different at the extremes, right? If you're starting off where you're so skinny that you're like 6'2", weigh 115 pounds, we're not going to tell people, yeah, gain about 1% of your body weight every week. It's like they're so skinny that it's actually really unhealthy, and the rate of muscle gain is going to be less because they don't even have enough body fat. Like they have no energy that they're taking in throughout the day, even if they're in a slight surplus. It's still a small amount of energy they're taking in. So for those guys, it's like they could easily gain. I would say in the first month, second month, third month, it's like they could definitely gain a heck of a lot more than any other point. If anything, it's great for them to gain fat very quickly in the first few months. They could gain 5-6 pounds, maybe even more in each of those first 3 months. And then they could start to go at like a 1% per month, right? And then like on the very fat side, I'd say it's just like you were talking about right before, like where the weight's probably going to come off a lot quicker. If they're following basic habits of just moving more, even if they were eating even if they were just understanding how many calories they were eating and tracking that, eating more protein and then moving more and resistance training 2 to 3 times a week, they're probably going to lose like 5 pounds in the first 2 weeks doing just that. Maybe more because there's going to be a lot of water weight too. They might lose 5 pounds in the first week and some of that will be water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are definitely the extremes. And then in terms of the timeline, right? So this is probably the last thing we talk about. So the timeline. So this is definitely for the people in the middle, right? So we went over the extremes. Yeah. So the people in the middle, when we diet and when we coach cutting phases, know that we typically don't give people more than 12 weeks. So in a short amount of time, 12 weeks is at most, 24 pounds. Yeah. That's for somebody over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're under 200 pounds, then that means you're only losing about between 12 and 24, basically. Anywhere in between, because obviously most men that we work with now are right between 150 and 200 on average. So know that if you're dieting 12 weeks, that's it. That's as much as we diet in an entire time that we work with them for the whole year. And that means that's only 3 months? So that means the 9 months is maintenance to bulking, right? So that in perspective, you just lost anywhere between 12 and 24 pounds in 12 weeks. And now you're putting on weight for 9 months, multiply that by 2. At the low end, that's 18 pounds, right? That's at the low end. Sorry. That's at like the on the higher end that we recommend for the people in the middle here. So 18 pounds is at like the high end of if you did 9 months of straight bulking, which is not usually what happens. What happens is like most people are actually scared to put on weight, or they're reluctant to put on weight in this period of time. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, I'm bought in. So usually it's only about like 6 months of actual bulking. So that's like 12 pounds. So that all I'm saying to you is you're putting on 12 to 18 pounds in a 9 month time frame in 1 year, right? And then 3 months is gone. All that's just like evaporated of fat. Yeah. So just imagine it as a long separation of time. It takes way more time to put on muscle than it does to burn fat. Burning fat is actually the fastest.
It's the easy part.
Yeah, it's the fastest part of the nutritional journey once you have the principles set. So just know that it is a longer timeline for both of these. That's why we look at the macro picture, and that's why when we coach people, we our systems are built for an entire year because we know for a fact it's not. Yes, we can get them to look great once you decide we're going to bulk maintain cuts, and then we get them to look great, so they buy in, but then they realize the journey is actually a very long time, at least a 1 year out.
Yeah, it becomes a full lifestyle in order to keep looking great. If it's a one-time thing, I have to look good for a wedding. Well, then they're only going to look good for the wedding. But if it's not their lifestyle that made them look good for the wedding, well, their lifestyle will not be aligned with continuing to look good as they did on that wedding day. Mm-hmm. So it's as simple as that. So basically, the moral of the story is, if your wife looked good on her wedding and now she's fat, well, you guys got to change your lifestyle. So if you guys are enjoying this episode so far and got lots of value with it, share it with a friend or subscribe so you guys can keep getting awesome value from this podcast. Let's get back into the show.
What content have you enjoyed doing so far?
What content have I enjoyed doing?
Not the best ones, just which ones have you enjoyed doing?
I don't even think I really enjoy making content. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I think I enjoy working out. I think I like helping people. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I like the process of making the content to help people, if that makes sense. I would say the ones, excuse me, that I enjoy the most would be actually probably the ones going to the grocery stores, going over the different food options, because there's lots of different options that I didn't previously use that now I can use on my own, and then it just allows me to more easily help people. So I had a client yesterday who was not having the best microwavable food options, and I sent him like 3 videos real quick, and it instantly helped him out. I didn't need to do anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting. We went from, it goes from, I guess you realize it goes right from being a straight up trainer, nutritionist at a local gym to then a bigger gym. And then once you're on your own, then you realize it actually is more sales and marketing more than anything
Definitely,
else.
Yeah.
So that's why like each one of our videos now, it's basically considered an ad, a hook.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I thoroughly enjoy it. And I think it's because I'm not good at it yet. So I think it's less of a pure enjoyment. There's very few things that you just like, man, I enjoy this right away anyways. Yeah. So
it's very rare.
I don't think, to myself, I don't think I'll enjoy it in the sense of like, I'm happy to do this every single day.
Yeah.
But once I'm good at it, I'm sure I'll enjoy the process
a little bit more.
And then once the feedback loop comes back towards it, then I think it will kind of match.
Yeah, I think also, well, for example, it's probably much more enjoyable for someone to work out, get a pump, take a photo, and then get like 20,000 likes and have to have done little work compared to someone who, is grinding on making educational content, and it's not the type of thing that's very popular or trendy. So it's not getting many views. And I mean, it's just something, with the algorithm where it's, it's not really in your hands, even if your content's perfect. So you just got to kind of keep doing it. And I mean, I guess it really depends on the person. Like, there's some things that if you aren't good at it to begin with, then it's not fun. And then it becomes more fun anyways, as you get better at it. And I think there's other things that maybe break that rule a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. Occasionally, like, I think it's a thing that sometimes people are really obsessed with, whereas like they start off not very good, but they're like, man, I love this thing. I want to get better at it because it's so fun. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of times it is the reverse way around, and people just don't think about it that way.
Yeah, I'm like I said, it's just like a new step forward. So I'll eventually get used to it. And then once, it's funny because I assume once it starts picking up, that's when it's like, okay, we're probably doing something better. Basically, it's all a learning experience, but realistically throughout my life, it's like everything I've learned, whether it be the guitar, whether it be baseball, it's like or video games, it's just like as I got better at it, it's like then I thoroughly more enjoyed it. But that's also because you start understanding the nuances, the skill of it. Like, it's different. So like in this case, it's like, well, I'm not a video editor, but now I'm part-time video editor, and it's like, well, now I'm also a part-time copywriter. It's like
part-time everything now.
Yeah. So it's now I get to be a part of all of the processes going into it. So I have to get better at every single process, which is obviously going to take a little bit of time. So it's like, that's why right now it's not natural or feels good.
Yeah.
But it's also we're not getting any feedback. And if we were to get feedback right away anyways, that'd be also a bad thing, because that means even if our content is bad, it would have been like our content's not very good, then it's immediate feedback on the bad content, and then we thought that would have been good content. So it would have just been like a bad loop anyways. So eventually we will get the one thing that kind of sticks out.
Yeah, I guess in a way though, it'd be good if you had like a bunch of people telling you suck, because it's like a comedian. Like they go at, like the hard part about being a comedian is that it's the only thing where the barrier to entry is that if you suck, people will just yell at you and like heckle you and tell you suck, to the point where you were already nervous, and then you have to get over the fact that you have to go out again knowing that you suck. Whereas like at least if with something else, if you give it your best effort, like piano, and you're like, wow, I messed up that song, but it was in my own like diner or something, or in my own like house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's not that big of a problem. But if it's in front of a crowd of 10,000 people and they're like, you're the worst piano player ever, chances are you're not really gonna want to go play piano again. So but it is that kind of barrier to entry with comedians where they deal with like the utmost difficulty trying to start their career. They throw themselves into the fire, the best ones. A lot of times they suck. They think they're good and they're horrible. But then they have the courage and fortitude to come back again and try anyways and do that again and again, told they suck, until they don't suck because they've been told they suck so much, and then they finally learn. So it's, I think depending on I think that the people who are the most strong-willed and will be the ones who are most successful, because they have to be the people that go through that difficulty when they're just trying to get started. Like it's almost no one other than like maybe like if you're like a TikTok dancer or some shit, like some bullshit like that. It's almost no one who does anything of importance that has a level of skill to it that just goes in and no one ever tells them like you suck.
Mm-hmm.
Like that never happens.
Yeah, you just get a lot of trolls now. I got a lot of YouTube trolls now.
Yeah, YouTube. Well, what's the worst trolling for you? YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram?
Definitely YouTube. YouTube is funny. I think YouTube is just. I think most people see a blurb. I mean, you can see the average time spent on the video.
Yeah,
and they'll spend about 10 seconds, and then once they get through the video, they will say like they'll talk about the very specifics, like the nuances. The one was like the orange juice, like, oh, orange juice isn't bad. It's like, yeah, I know it's not inherently bad. Like the whole point is that they're probably drinking orange juice by like half the gallon.
Yeah,
taking like 300 calories
and like not doing anything else right on top of that.
Yeah. And then I was talking about the semantics of blood rushing. Basically, I did insulin rush as the word because people understand that more. But he's like, I'm pretty sure it's a blood sugar spike and a blood sugar crash. I was like, yes. I was like, basically they're like very, very technical. And I was like, yes, I'm not gonna be perfect on every one of these sentences. I was like, I'm not a doctor of any sort. I just like the basic understanding.
Yeah, you can't win with that. It almost doesn't even pay to look at those comments, because it's like Mike Israetel could say everything in a perfectly scientific sense, and someone will still find a reason to argue with him. And then you could have someone like Eric Bugenhagen, who's the exact opposite. He's like, man, I just want to have like horse cock muscle, man, just lift everything. And it almost is like he gets less negative comments because it's really bizarre, actually. It's like the more stupid he talks, the less negative comments he gets, because it's like almost his gimmick. Whereas like the more intelligent people, not even that they try to sound, but the more science-based people get, the more people are going to try and argue, because all of a sudden people become scientists in the comment section. But it's like, if you're just like broing out, it's like it's hard for someone to like disagree with like your broing. It's like, what are they going to try to like out bro your bro? Like bros get along. So like there's nothing, it's like immobilizes people.
Yeah, they try to bring down, it's like they try to bring down the expert, or they try to find the little nuances in the middle that they're trying to knock. But in reality, like they're not. I can see why now it does get frustrating for a lot of people who like read the comments and like, I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, I found it funny. I just be like, hey, thanks for commenting. And
I bet you people quit on like day one.
Oh, you mean, especially if they blow up. That's why I'm waiting for one of our posts to go to over 100,000, and then we just get a bunch of people saying a bunch. I would love to see what it becomes. So
have you seen the ads?
Huh?
It just says like "nice try, Diddy" on all the ads.
No,
you see, I don't even know what that means.
I couldn't tell you.
Something with Diddy, obviously, but like, yeah, like every ad I get now that has like, that's a big company. Like it'd be like a Hermosi ad, and it's like 1,000 comments going down the line. Nice try, Diddy. Nice try, Diddy. Nice try. It's
all bots everywhere now. You go on Twitter and it's You go on Twitter, it's like all like corn bots, and then next thing you know, you go on Instagram, it's I won't say it's corn bots. Now it's just like more spammers. It's definitely spammers.
It's like Kamala bots.
I wouldn't doubt it. And then let's see, Twitter, and then YouTube. YouTube is the least amount of bots, but definitely the most amount of trolls. It's the oddest.
And there's like nothing you could do, like because like it's not a social platform.
Yeah, it's so odd. All of this is so odd, but the most people that have commented are definitely on YouTube. So
yeah,
I'm definitely getting the most views on YouTube Shorts, which is the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I mean, it must be something with the algorithm too right now, and like something that people value on there more than other places. But the algorithm changes so much. It's like I had someone comment, and I was talking back and forth with him. He was another coach, and he was like, "This is such good content. It's a shame no one likes this anymore."
I saw that comment.
Yeah, and I was like talking to him, and he was like, "Yeah, man." And he was like, 2 years ago, it's like you could be like some skinny ass bitch and like talk about it. So, I mean, it was basically me, and like just say something about fitness, and it's like boom, you blow up. And he's like, now the industry's just like, totally different. It's like I can't remember what word people were using because it's like I'm saying like younger kids as if I'm not like really young, but it's like whatever word they're using. It's like, basically fitness industry, it's dead, bro, even though it's not. It's like it's just so oversaturated that now the price of entry is so much higher and there's so much more difficulty in like being favorable with the algorithm, I guess. Whereas if you're, and it's also what our society values. So if our society values stupidity, lack of morals, just physique, and no value in education whatsoever, well then it's much easier for like a 16-year-old kid who like blasted 3 grams of roids every single week to go viral than someone who's actually giving you advice to look as best as possible naturally.
Yeah. It is interesting. It is definitely interesting. The biggest thing I've seen so far was definitely leaner. So Instagram, it's definitely the leaner side of things. It's definitely leaner side. It's definitely fast, very fast paced.
And like super leaner side. Not like just leaner side things. It seems like unless you're if you're not above or below 8% body fat, it's like you don't look good enough.
Yeah, definitely especially for the bodybuilder side. But at least the coaches, what they'll do is at least they'll just be like, funny. I've been following more of the coaches that are just like they have more followers. I don't know. They don't have as many success stories. Like, as a coach looking in, is like I know they don't have as many success stories in relation to their followers.
Yeah.
So it's like I know like it's definitely more. He's more viral more than anything else. And we're just looking at basically his content. It's like it's definitely better in terms of like how snappy it is, in terms of how fast it goes frame to frame.
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely some things that I need to work on, but I saw him and his physique, and it's like I probably had that year 1 of training, and then all he did was get lean with it.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow. I was like, this is what it takes to. I mean, he also has an accent from somewhere in Eastern Europe, but he speaks English. Whatever.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not anything impressive by any sort, by any stretch of the imagination. What you see on Instagram.
I think I know what you're talking about too, actually. Maybe, but
yeah, he was on one of the Instagram channels he followed me on. He was like, "Oh, this is how good this guy is."
Yeah,
he blew up, right? And one of his biggest things is like, "Do this." Like, what happens if I do this? Oh, do that. And it's like, "Oh, what happens if I can't do this? Oh, do that."
Yeah,
and I think that's one of those videos.
Gotcha. Yeah, that stuff like it makes me mad because it's like, do you just like start trying to do stuff like that? It's just so bizarre because it doesn't seem like it gives much value, but I think the whole point is that people don't want to hear scientists. They put it this way. It's like if they want to get in shape, but their brains are so used to consuming stupid shit. It's like within fitness, it doesn't change. Like their brains don't change into a new, like they don't become scientists once they go into fitness. It's like they still are brain rotting people who are doom scrolling. So at the end of the day, it's like they still want to see stuff where it's like you said, do this and then do this. If this doesn't work, do this. And it's like highlighting muscles. And like magically you're like, oh, I'm going to get jacked now because I watched this video. So, but also like what I have noticed is some people can make the exact same content and it's like really, really good. And like nothing happens though. It's like you could have 9 people making the like, do this, do that content. And it's like nothing happens. And they post like 5 times a day. It's like perfect. And then you have one guy who does the same thing and like he blows up. So I do think that even though I believe that, you're responsible for making your own luck, when it comes to the algorithm, like there's an actual element of luck, whereas in other parts of life, like there definitely isn't. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely have a growth mindset. I'm not like going to be the person that's saying, oh, Instagram's algorithm is the only reason I can't be successful, right? But at the same time, it's it's probably one of the most luck infested things, whereas like it's not it wouldn't be the case elsewhere, like an in-person gym, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, think of it this way. Imagine 20, 30 years ago to be on any sort of billboard, any sort of platform to have your face, your saying, your words, whatever it might be. You'd have to pay a large sum of money just to even be anywhere, or at least know somebody to do so. Whereas now, I think that's why it's technically every video is a marketing video, whether you think about it like that or not. So I think it's good that it's free, basically.
Yeah,
that you're able to put yourself out there,
because anyone can then.
Yeah, anyone can. So then, obviously, that's the bad part, because now it is saturated. So there has to be some sort of governing, or some sort of, I won't say governing either, but algorithm. I guess it could be just the algorithm. But the whole point is that there has to be a way to filter everything, so it kind of shoots out to maximize profit for, or at least attention.
It's just the part is based on human psychology, and it's just gotten like. Now that our society's delved away from our morals even more, and then we've just basically become stupefied, it makes it even more exaggerated. So like it is exposed parts of human nature that already existed, and then it's just been exacerbated through social media and then through other things as well. So it's just interesting because like that is obviously like it's a mystery. It's not like an exact science what the algorithm's based on, because there's so many things that go into it. No one person could perfectly explain it, even that works at Instagram, for example. But if, the aggregate of people are responsible for what goes viral, it's like, well, look at the aggregate of people in this country now and like what they believe in and what they stand for and how they act and how they lead their lives. It's like we're talking to like all these people who are out of shape and don't have their lives together. It's like, it's no wonder why content that's stupid is going viral. It's because it's people that are out of shape that don't have their lives together, that are sitting on their couch eating Doritos, watching stupid shit. Like there's, you know what I mean? So it's like there's a very happy medium with that.
Yeah, I think one of the as I'm making these content pieces, I wanted to take at least 1 month and keep it like somewhat similar, so I don't change too many variables at one time. But I have been getting a lot of feedback on at least the people, basically a lot of the posts with non-followers. I've noticed. So 2 big trends. One, I speak to people that are trying to eat more calories and put on weight.
Yeah, it's
never would have thought.
Yeah,
never would have thought. And then 2 is everybody that has been giving me feedback on like the posts and stuff, or polls. So it's polls on Instagram and on YouTube. YouTube, it's definitely more of the food stuff.
Yeah,
meal planning and structuring. Anything about nutrition, setting it up. So I was like, wow. Okay, so
it's like the least. There's so much less coaches talking about that compared to like just like lifting weights, for example.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I was thinking about making a meal. Like I'm literally gonna take. The whole point is that our system works. So I'm gonna be like, okay, this is literally what we do for our clients. Like the meal. This is how we set up the meal prep.
Yeah,
and then I'll obviously do it like a 3-day thing, because like it'd be too long for a 6-day thing. But I'll just be like, I'm going to take our sheet and just run it right through for like a 5-part mini series. I might even make it to a YouTube video, just a full YouTube video, and just clip it into 5.
Yeah, you just do that.
5 shorts, and then keep it under 5 minutes. Yeah, around like 5 minutes. And it's super fast. The whole point is like I literally just go through like the sheet.
Yeah,
I break down the sheet, figure out what grocery stores I go to, get the food, come back. You know what I mean? Like it's just like come back, prep it, basic prep. I mean like the most basic prep, and then it's just basic prep, containers.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the biggest. I mean, it's tough because I think there's just so much physique focused stuff on the internet, and then the people who are science based it relates to the gym, and then what you have left over is whoever's talking about nutrition, and so many people that talk about nutrition are usually advertising fad diets anyways. So there's a very small subset of people who are science-based, talking a lot more about nutrition than they are about weight training. It's like you have great guys like Jeff Nippard, but most of the time he is talking about weight training. Obviously, he talks about nutrition and the basics, but if he's talking about like, hey, this is how many calories you should be getting in for this goal, and this is how much grams of protein you should be getting in. He's not necessarily going into detail on like, this is how you prep, this is how you cook the food, this is how you season it, this is how you container it, freeze it, refrigerate it. This is how you do it without prepping if you're like a busy career-driven person. Like, it's not like he's going to go through all that because it's not his niche, you know? And so most people don't have that niche. So I think it's a good gap to fill.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. It's so interesting because I'm by no means a chef, and I'm not going to lead of the fact that I'm a chef.
Yeah. Imagine Chef Chris. It's like the Instagram handle changes.
But also, I mean, to be fair, it gives me room to grow in learning the principles of cooking, because there are so many. Like, I'm definitely going to take a cooking class, professional cooking class, because I've noticed that a lot of the people in the fitness space, especially nutritionists, eventually become good at cooking, and it's because most of our lives are going to be spent cooking, unless you do have the resources to have somebody cook for you, whether it be a professional chef, a maid of any sort, or that you eat out a lot because you're also in that professional realm. So most of the clients that we work with are middle, regular people, middle class to upper middle class on average, with the exceptions of people who are just absolutely rich. But that means most of the people that we do work with now do cook their own food. And that means they spend at least, I mean, think about it. If it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner with, like, let's say you do leftovers for breakfast, that still means that you're preparing at least two meals of the day. And that means one meal has to be cooked, most likely.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I will have to take the time to learn the principles of cooking, so then I can at least teach them how to do or make different ways of cooking, to also make it simplified too. Like right now, yes, I've been cooking and trying to look a certain way for many years now, but that means I only cook a certain way to make it easy and practical and make it good enough, not where it's good for the majority of the people.
Yeah.
So when I do the meal prep series, it would just be like, this is exactly the process that we do for our clients. Like, make it simple.
Yeah.
It's on a sheet of paper, and you just write it all out, and the next thing you know, you can make it so that you can have, for how many days that you want to prep, it's just bang right in front of you.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's the whole thing where if people aren't as interested in the educational part, well, it's like, it doesn't matter, because the people who are the people who you want to be talking to anyways. Because if you have the masses, they're problem unaware. Like, they're unaware of anything. Like, they're not even problem aware. And then they're definitely not like solution aware. So like, if you think about like the ascension of like going down like that buyer's path, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it makes more sense to speak to the people who are problem aware and then give them solutions, and like speak to their problems and then give them solutions, as to trying to convince people who are unaware that they're a fat piece of shit, It's much harder to do. It's like, that's what makes Jordan Peterson so remarkable, and what allows him to speak to so many men and resonate with them is that he was able to tap into those people who are so unaware that there actually was a problem, at least not like consciously, just deep down they were. And he was like kind of able to get that out of them to the point where they realize like, oh wow, this is a problem that I do this, and this every day. And this is a problem that I'm not where I want to be in life, and that I'm not the man I'm supposed to be. And now he's also giving me a solution. So it's like he literally took these people down like every layer, whereas most people can't do that. It's like there's the most money there in terms of like a mass market, but it's like almost impossible to be able to tap into those people. Like, you have to be like someone really special to be able to do that. It's like Hormozi. It's like people are unaware in the sense of like they don't even know they want to start their own business, and then he's like, yeah, anyone could start their own business. It's like, wow, right? But then, the average person, like if they're, you see an ad on Instagram from a business coach, it's not going to, at the most point, it's not going to be someone like Hormozi talking to everyone. It's going to be like, hey, are you like a East Asian dude who's trying to start a real estate business and you're thinking about running ads to do it? Like, it's something very specific, So I think it's the same thing with these guys, is like to be specific with it is better, because like at the end of the day, being general, like no one cares. Like, people, when you're general, everyone's like, wow, you look amazing, bro. It's awesome. You get a lot of followers. And then it's just like, you're a broke influencer.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to bridge that medium. So like,
I think there is a medium. Yeah.
I'm trying to bridge it. So I probably will have to start posting more physique stuff. What I'm definitely going to do is, at least since Instagram is our main platform, I definitely will have, those bubbles like that you have.
Yeah.
I need to start setting those. I think it's only from the stories though.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we'll have to do like I think set up each bubble so it's like, besides the client testimonial. So that's why now I know why all the client testimonials go there.
Yeah, I would do like client, gym, lifestyle. Like I would have like 3 to 4 basically. Maybe you have like one podcast if you wanted to do that, or YouTube because we're gonna start linking like YouTube videos / podcasts in the story, so you do that too.
Yeah, so I think I'll do like, for example, like my story. Funny, actually my video got taken down from YouTube because you're not allowed. I think I specifically said in my short clip that I created for my podcast that I had bulimia, or I had an
They're upset about that?
The wording was that we don't want the promoting of an eating disorder. And obviously there's more nuances in there, but in that short, it's probably like, don't do this, don't do that. It was just like, hey, I had one.
Yeah.
and it was just like, this is what happened to me. And then
wow. That's so crazy though. You know what's crazy about that though is that you're promoting something positive because you're saying like, even in that 60-second clip, you're talking about like your story to like show that you resonate with people. You're not making it seem like a positive thing. You're not like, man, this was awesome. Like you're not saying
horrible.
anything positive about it at all. So the crazy part is that there's people on Insta, like you could like shake your ass on YouTube, like post like a full. You could be like a like Megan Thee Stallion, shake your ass on screen, and like that's fine. You basically like have corn on there, but then like you can't talk about something that people actually go through and struggle with without it being considered to promote it. It's like Lizzo, every single one of her videos should get taken down then because she's promoted obesity for so many years. It's like all her videos should be taken down because it's actually unhealthy.
Yeah, it's honestly backwards. Like I'm like by no means am I going on YouTube and be like, no, you guys are terrible. I think it's like I probably have to word a certain few things to make sure that it goes by the bylines and the rulings and terms.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So it's like I'll be more cognizant of it. It just took me back because I didn't realize. Because by no means will I ever say, hey, you should have this. Like,
yeah.
the whole clip or that podcast short was all about talking about my story and what I'm going through or what I went through. So it gives us an idea, or it gives everybody else an idea of like, hey, we're not perfect either, and this is our journey.
Exactly, yeah.
So
otherwise, we're not relatable at all. Like we're just like, it makes no. You don't want to make yourself a celebrity. You want to make yourself one of them.
I ate perfect since I came out of the womb.
Yeah, it's like Kim Jong-un's like the myths around him. He's like, he doesn't pee or poo. Yeah, you got a bad court reading on the YouTube policy there. That was rough.
Yeah, it was right away too. I appealed it, and they're like, "No, it breaks YouTube guidelines."
And that was like what happened with me on Instagram like 6 months ago when I was like my story, I'll come to your house and like hit you with the hammer or something. Like I don't know, I said something like that, and they're like, "Man, you're promoting violence." Like I like tried to appeal it right away, and they're like, "Nope, you're promoting violence." Damn it. So yeah. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. If you want to keep getting value and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on our Instagrams. Mine's BenjiTucker.fit.
And Coach_Chris Lee.
Have a good one.